Today we're going to close out First Samuel 28. The narrative turns from David back to Saul, and we see a really sad chapter in Saul's life. Saul is desperate for divine guidance. He's about to go into a battle with the Philistines, and he wants to know what to do. What's the outcome going to be? He wants divine guidance. But Samuel's dead. He's killed a whole bunch of priests. And so Saul goes to a medium. He goes to, someone who practiced something that God had said in his law was not to be done among his people. His people were not to go to mediums. Someone who claimed to be able to contact the dead is the specific practice here. Because God was being silent. But in part it was Saul had been silencing the avenues that God had given to him, and in part Saul had been resistant to what God had already said. God had said that David's next, and Saul was resistant to that and acting against it. Now, Saul had never been one who was always completely disobedient to God. He had expelled all the mediums from the land. And so Saul has to go outside his territory, actually into Philistine territory, showing how desperate Saul was, and he contacts a medium. And this may surprise us when you read this for the first time, and maybe this time was the first time, I don't know. But it's like, this worked? What's going on? And sometimes, at least as Western Christians, we don't really know what to do with the demonic or kind of the spiritual world. We think very scientifically, whether we realize that or not. That's just the influence of our culture, very materially. And so that doesn't mean like materialistically necessarily, like selfish, greedy. I mean, just the material, the physical world, as opposed to the supernatural or the metaphysical. But Saul, he's going through this process, and who does he want to talk to? Samuel. He's wanting divine guidance, and Samuel, at least sometimes, had been on his side, or that's where Saul had gotten his start. Notice here that Saul actually also invokes the name of Yahweh, the name of God, as proof to the medium. I'm not going to harm you. He uses the name of the God he knows banned the practice. It's like, the God who tells me that I shouldn't be here, I'm going to promise in his name that I'm not going to hurt you for me contacting you like I'm not supposed to do. But again, Saul had so resisted God up to this point, he just has left himself to his perspective, no options. So what's going on here? This ritual that goes on, did it work? Can it work? There's a lot here. I'll just say it honestly. I think there's a lot of debate that we can have, but we should take from other biblical examples here, that God did and does seem to use the practices or the customs of other peoples, meeting them where they're at. For example, back in chapter 6, the priests of Dagon go, how do we know what to do with the ark? Because the ark of Yahweh is causing problems. It's making the statue of our God fall over and break apart. How do we know if it's Yahweh? And they come up with this, well, let's put the ark on a cart and cows and send them off. And if it goes this way, it's Yahweh. There's no instructions for that in the Bible. There's nowhere that, well, let's read the book of, in the book of Leviticus, if you're not sure if the Ark of the Covenant is causing problems, there's none of that. These priests of Dagon are trying, well, this just makes sense to us in our worldview. They didn't pull it completely out of the air. It made sense in their worldview. They were making a test that would have made sense to how they saw the gods work. And Yahweh met them in the midst of it, as misguided as it may be in ways. And so, was this Samuel? Sure. Maybe. At the root, It's Yahweh, it's God seeking even still to communicate to Saul. God doesn't want to be silent. God wants us to be seeking him. But depending on the ways that we seek, it limits God because he seeks to honor our free will. And it limits God because God's not going to change his good plan for our stubborn, rebellious ways. Saul's told the kingdom was being given to David, and it's going to happen soon. In fact, tomorrow you and your sons are going to be dead. Not good news for Saul. Again, just want to bring up this obedience and hearing from God when he is silent. I think there's times for all of us, we just feel like, God, we're not hearing from you. God, we're not sure what you're saying. Sometimes we ask God for directions and we get silence. Sometimes it's because God has already spoken. We know what we should do. We're just, maybe we haven't been listening well, or maybe we're not wanting to walk that way. And we hope if we ask again, God will change his mind and go, well, okay, I'll do it this way. Sometimes God is silent because we are sincerely resistant. And God goes, telling you isn't going to help you right now. Sometimes God is silent because things aren't ready yet. Or there's things that we need to learn in the journey. Saul was desperate. He was driven. He went about it in a wrong way. I'm not trying to sugarcoat that. But something finally was driving him to turn to Yahweh again. Or at least to Samuel, the prophet of Yahweh. Sometimes God's silence is actually a gift he's giving us because it stirs in us a desire. It renews a spark of, I need to hear from you, God. So we want to be careful, though, to seek him in healthy ways. And one of the ways to keep ourselves healthy is we do that in community. We put ourselves in postures, again, just to listen, trust, and obey. As you seek to listen to God today, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you. And today would you know his peace. God bless.